Mumbai, the city of dreams, has had its fair share of shortcomings in terms of infrastructural projects. Take the poster child of BMC, for example, the coastal road. This city glorifies this project as the sole remedy of our traffic problem, the sugar-coated perfect solution. However, there are many disadvantages of it. For example, the massively overshot BMC budget and also the fishermen job losses. What, 50% of their income decreased after the project?
Or the fact that Mumbai has already matched Delhi's sky-high AQI, and stacking projects on top of another will only worsen our dust epidemic. On top of this, the politician-builder nexus or corruption has inflated apartment prices in our city, which will only worsen the problem.
Combating these issues should be of utmost importance for this city's prosperity. And what is the answer? A strong and sustainable architectural base is really important for this city. It will not only help us increase our standard of living, but also ensure equal opportunities for all by increasing the public transport and minimizing the property prices through lesser corruption.
Damn, that's some terrible soothsaying. Anyways, greetings for the day, folks. We are your hosts, Prahlad and Rishika, and welcome to our podcast, How the World Works from the Economist Next Door, where we're joined by Ms. Pornima Buddhivant, who's a leading figure in the world of sustainable architecture and infrastructure, and will be helping us explore practices followed in this domain. Greetings for the day, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today.
So we'd like to start off by asking you about your thoughts on the words sustainable architecture and infrastructure.
Sustainable architecture might look like modern concept, but actually it is not. If we trace back the roots, we can see that that was there in the earliest human civilizations. Also, our ancestors used to build the houses which were adapted to the environment, and they used to build the houses with local materials. This is one of my favorite sentences, that it is that always a disaster has to happen for the world to start preparing. So in around late 18th century, the scientists actually started observing that the glaciers are melting. And in 1897, on the similar background, there was this commission called Brundtland World Commission, which basically works for the environment, sustainability and the sustainable development. So then they basically wrote down this definition that what is sustainable development. So then they said that a development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their need. So that means whatever we are consuming now should be left for the future generation as well, right? Whether it's a development or let's say architecture or any pattern that we consume. So, and if you talk about the sustainable architecture, that is the common terms that we use nowadays, our buildings generally use 40% of the energy. So energy or water, let's say, plays a pivotal role in buildings. So let me give you one example, okay? So let me give you an example of a human being. So if you compare any human being with a building, okay? So a building gets born one day, right? It's live its life just like how we live. It consumes energy just like how we eat the food, and it secretes the waste. So it is just like acting as a human body. Can you agree to that? So right? Yeah, so yeah. It's basically non-living thing, but it's actually living the life of a human. So let's consider कि मैंने आपको उठा के कोई तो दूसरे city में डाल दिया, which is not relevant to you, right? And you will feel that this is not my place, this is not my atmosphere. Same goes with the building. If we do not design as per the climate, do not design as per the location, it is not going to support the surrounding environment. So that is what sustainable architecture or the environmental architecture is. Basically, you have to consider the social and the economic factors. So this is what the need that was there, and this is now it has going.
Adapting it to each place.
Adapting, and there are several social economic factors that we have to consider. So let's say a green building is a subset of the whole thing, sustainable architecture. Then there is a energy efficient buildings. Then there is an environmental building. And when we talked about the sustainable architecture, it's basically comprising the social and economic factor, which is not present in the initial 3 stages. So yeah, so it talks about that. So basically in the current scenario, buildings which have the less human impact on the environment, that is a sustainable building. So it can be through energy efficiency, it can be through water, reuse of water, let's say, or using the eco-friendly materials. So that constitutes the environmental architecture,
Right, so
I would
different
say.
methods.
Yeah, right.
Now, could you share any project of yours that you've worked on which you've really liked, or something you're working on at this moment in time?
Right. So I have worked in office as well, and I have worked on few projects. So currently, I'm working as an assistant professor at an architecture college in Mumbai. So there, I take subjects such as architectural design, let's say environmental studies or interior design. So through all the, let's say, theory or technical subjects, my aim is basically, the beauty of the profession is that, you know, I'm allowed to share the knowledge to the students and let them decide about how they can design the buildings with the help of passive strategies, or, you know, keeping the environment in mind. About the projects that I have worked, so I had designed this building in Y. It was a farmhouse basically. So my client itself had told me that, you know, ma'am, अगर मैं कोई दूसरा architect select करता तो शायद वो इतना नहीं सोचता, because I had that background of environmental architecture. He was very impressed with the terms that I used, because that time I was doing my masters. I was, I think, in my second semester, and I told my teachers that, okay, can I take this project as a studio project, whatever the live project I was doing, and I was simultaneously working in a, you know, theory part and the practical things. So it was a hands-on experience. Okay, whatever I'm learning in college, I'm actually trying to getting to implement in the live project. So yeah, that was a beautiful experience that I had at my professional level. Also about my colleagues, if you ask, many of them are working in green building sectors. So there are the rating system, right, for the buildings that you get. LEED, IGBC, you know, well, all these things. So they are working in green building sectors. So yeah, so this is how we are contributing to that factor.
Yeah, there have been so many projects going on in and around the world, you know. Speaking on a more international or a global level, in cities like Barcelona, they were one of the first ones to
Right.
have implemented the entire the foresightedness of having a green city.
Right.
You know, I have recently heard like 21 junctions and streets, they've completely made
yes.
vehicle-free zones, and they aspire to build every one in 3 streets to have a small garden, so that every citizen of theirs is in contact of an outdoor space. How do you think that such practices can be implemented in our Bombay? And is it even feasible, or is a very far-fetched dream to be implemented in a city like ours?
So firstly, let's understand why is the need of urban squares, right? So basically urban squares is a platform for expression, let's say, where people meet. There might be for meetings or gatherings or festivals or sometimes sports too, right? So the urban squares that we design, it basically depends on the scale, like at what scale you want to design. You want to design at a junction level, you want to design at a building level where there are, you know, 5-6 buildings are coming and you have that node, or you want to design at a city level. So the scale matters, also the location matter where you are designing, right? And the importance of the cultural part, it matters. And so the outcome of the urban plaza is what we can say, it depends on all these factors: scale, location, and the importance of that place. So you will see that how people are experiencing that particular space. So if we consider that same factor in Mumbai, for that matter Paris also. So Paris is also what they are doing, they are creating a green spaces around the monuments. So that is also one, again, what you can say, a dynamic step when they are leading more or aiming for the, you know, pedestrian friendly zones, or let's say eco-friendly zones in their cities. So talking about Mumbai particularly, I would say that it is not impossible to do that, but Mumbai is such a dynamic and I would say diverse city that implementing a plan which is done in another country might not directly, you know, feasible to apply over here. We have to see that the population, the overcrowded streets, or the existing infrastructure that we have. Mumbai was never a planned city like Delhi, like you see, you know, right? It was never a planned city. So we have to see that how we can tackle this problem, maybe region-wise. So yeah, that is possible. But we have to take the consideration of these points as well.
Yeah, the way they're created, Barcelona is like grids.
It is
small
already planned,
grids.
right?
Yeah,
so
and
you
Mumbai
can perform, you know, or implement such things in that. But if it's not planned and it's a haphazard development. So over there it's become little critical. I'm not saying it's not possible, it's possible, but you know, it's a little critical and crucial what the challenges that we have to overcome. So yeah.
Different cities. So
But yeah, if we could do that, it would be a great thing, because we are, you know, having that vehicle reliance, and then we will definitely improve the AQI. So the last AQI report, that is the Air Quality Index report, which was released in 2023, last year, we was amongst the highest, you know, in the highest rank. So if you could do that, it will definitely improve the air quality index of Mumbai. Definitely.
Yeah.
So coming closer to home, another city which world renowned, Singapore, and their architecture, their urban planning. They've started out, I think, from 1991 with they have a 100-year plan set in place for the structures they want to build. And Singapore, I think you might have looked into it. It's a very major thing what they're doing over there. And the green buildings that they plan to achieve, I think 80% of all buildings to be green by the year 2030. So they want them to be self-sufficient. Is there any project you've seen in Singapore through your years of experience which has, like, it's something very different to you? It's something you've not seen implemented anywhere else on the planet?
See, there are many projects that I have done, you know, very nicely, I would say. So the mission that they have is to do the 80% of the building green by 2030 is definitely a commendable job. And if you ask me that which project you like the most, I would say that it depends on a person to person, you know, what we see as an extension of ourselves, or what we perceive from the surrounding background. So there is this one project called as Fort Canning Park. So in, I think, 14th century, it was the place for the kings which was there, and then it becomes the headquarters for the British Army in, I think, World War II. So now in current times, the sanctuary has 9 parks and it is open for public basically. So all the 9 parks that you see have different themes, and it tells you the history of that place. So it comes under the adaptive reuse, right? So in Mumbai also we have many places that we should not demolish, and we just follow what they have done and try to implement. So let's say I have to design a garden project. What we'll do, we'll find a barren land, and then okay, I have to start from the scratch. But why we cannot think that okay, there are spaces like that which we can convert it into gardens which are already there. So I think if you ask me what project was your favorite, I think I could relate because I have lived in a surrounding of Mumbai mills. So in a Dadar where I stays, I can see the Kohinoor mill one from my window. So my grandpa used to work there, and I always see, okay, these politicians have you know, taken that land and they are planning this and that. But sometimes I think that how beautiful if someone could design that mill land for the adaptive reuse. Because I have my all childhood memories related to that place. I used to go with my grandma, you know, to take the tiffin with me for my grandpa. So I have seen the transformation of the urban context that have evolved. So somewhere I feel that instead of doing something from the scratch, we should, I think, also think about the adaptive reuse and rebuild reuse. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful concepts from Singapore that can be applied to Bombay because of the historical history.
So that was the one example, obviously. So there are these different buildings also, but that one project that I could really, because I have gone through that same, you know, architectural surrounding.
Singapore as a city also,
yeah,
just like Mumbai, there a lot of people crammed
into a smaller overcrowded space. Right,
so
true.
When I was looking into this, I thought कि it's something we can really, अगर copy paste कर सकते हैं तो करना चाहिए, but again demographic अलग है, cultures अलग है. I think because of that
I think it depends on the people also. So let's say take an example of, you are saying that Singapore is a small city, right? So you know, कतार का आप अगर रीजनल जोग्राफी देखोगे तो वो यूएसए से बहुत छोटा है, इतना सा है, यूएसए इतना तो कतार इतना, बट द कंजम्पशन of the Qatar population is much more than the USA, being the small geographical area. So it also matter for whom you are designing, and आपका cultural या फिर cultural बोलने से अलावा आपका in general political ये क्या है, कितना strong है, right? So I think that depends on that.
Makes sense, yeah, absolutely. On the similar lines, are there any other projects that you would especially want to talk about that stood out to you specifically?
Right. So, because maybe I follow such projects. So one thing, immediate thought, there is this project in New York, USA. So the project called as Highline. So it's built on an elevated rail actually. So you know our rail, monorail कैसे रहता है हमारा, वैसे ही it is an elevated rail that is not being used currently. So what they have done that उन्होंने उनको destroy नहीं किया. They have built the public path over that rail. So there a public park on the rail track. So you can see that the how the beautifully the bushes and the landscape have grown in that elevated track, and people are using. They have created the benches or seating arrangements on that elevated rail park. So it's a beautiful project which I am seeing from my college time. So yeah, that was the one project that I could relate from. And in Indian context, if I could mention, recently the Kempegowda International Airport in Bangalore got recognized by the UNESCO. Is one of the world's most beautiful airport, and it also got recognized for the interiors as well. So yeah, that was the one project from the recent time. Also there is this one school in Jaisalmer called Rajkumari Ratnavati Girls School. So it's a basically design keeping in mind the vernacular architecture. So it's designed on the principle of sustainability, at the same time community engagement. So sometimes it is also becomes important to have your community along with your architecture, because architecture cannot stand alone, as I would say. So yeah, these are the two projects that I could.
Can you tell us something more about the school? How is it built? How is it sustainable?
Sustainable as in terms of it is basically worked on the principle of, as I mentioned, vernacular architecture. It's in this oval shape where girls comes and have their interactions, or also there are these classrooms which are so, and in terms of the materials that I have used. So if you see, if you are using the appropriate materials, the outer temperature and the inner temperature, you will see the difference, right, in the temperature wise. So this is how they have designed to have the cross ventilation proper, all these things. So yeah.
Alright, so I think you spoke about Mumbai's AQI pehle.
Right.
That's one of the problems that we see if we want to undertake any major project in Mumbai right now. The dust is everywhere in this city right now. So what are some other issues you think that are present in this city which make practicing these sustainable architecture projects difficult for us?
So, Mumbai, I feel being the financial capital, our brain also works like that only, right? Being the coastal city and being blessed with rivers, we don't know our Mumbai rivers. Let me ask you, any river that you know from Mumbai? Any river, any one river from Mumbai, have you heard of? Yes, yes. Why it is that? Because there was this flood on 26th July in 2005. I think I was there. I think that time I was in primary.
I wasn't born
Yeah,
there.
we were not born.
So that's why we know our rivers for some wrong reasons. There are 4 rivers in Mumbai. We don't know our city well, and then we are trying to resolve the key issues. What you're talking, you should know our city well before anything, right? So there are these 4 rivers, the Mithi River, Oshivara River, the Hisar River and the Poisar River. If you take the example of any foreign countries, okay, what you will see, all these river development projects now, they have these public plazas, so there is this river line from which the river flows, and they have this public plaza or interaction zones along the river line, and then in the background they have their building. हमारे यहाँ पे उल्टा होता है, रिवर के ही बाजू में स्लम्स वगैरह होते हैं. सो वी व्हाट इम्पोर्टेंस दैट वी हैव गिवन टू आवर रिवर्स बेसिकली डिफाइन दैट. सो बेसिकली वी हैव टू शिफ्ट द आवर अप्रोच. So I think if we can focus more on the environmental part, that is the what we are blessed with, let's say coastal part or the river part, वो एक बार ठीक हो गया ना तो मुंबई के बाकी जो प्रॉब्लम्स है, फ्लड आता है, टेम्परेचर राइज होता है, ये सब आई थिंक वो विल हैव द लेटर इम्पैक्ट्स if we can solve the major problems.
Floods are still yearly issue every year.
Yeah, because we plan, what you can say, we plan bridges for ourselves. Let's say if we are planning Bandra Worli ceiling for the greater not communication, traveling, right? पर हमने कोस्टल के लिए क्या किया, वो सी के लिए क्या किया, कुछ नहीं ना. What we are doing is the for the consumers.
It's for us.
For us, not for the nature. So I think if we focus on that part, I think half of the problem that we are facing now might get resolved. And of course,
I strongly think now when we shift our focus from us to the other, to the nature, that's where sustainability actually comes in.
true.
Yeah.
Even if you design the riverfront development project, एक टाइम के बाद ऐसे होगा कि पानी नहीं बचेगा तो वो riverfront का कुछ फायदा ही नहीं है. So I think we should take into the consideration nature, environment first, and then we talk about बाकी सब चीजें तो बाद में आती है.
So now let's talk about some of the failures or some projects which haven't or you think won't live up to their potential. One specific one which comes to mind is the MTSL project, which connects Suri to Navi Mumbai.
Right.
And the problem, firstly, the 250 rupee toll, it's mind-boggling, honestly. But one of the main concerns with that bridge is that there's no proper public transport that's assisting it. तो जो गाड़ी चलाते हैं लोग वो सब आराम से ट्रैवल कर सकते हैं. They'll just pay the toll, go through. But the original plan had a railway line running alongside it.
Right.
But the government was like, inefficient hai, we'll scrap this because why do anything for benefiting their citizens?
Right, true.
So is there any project or anything in India as a whole which you think has failed massively or hasn't lived up to its potential?
Right. So if we look at a micro level also and a micro level also, so if we look Mumbai as an example, you will see that there is no proper waste management that we do, or let's say flood hota hai, so there is no proper channelized system for the handling the flood or the disaster systems. Basically we have less green spaces because the city is too compact and we have to pay for every feet, let's say in Mumbai. So that is one problem that we face. So but somewhere I feel that let's look at the positive side now. So do you know that the flyovers in the recent development they have proposed the gardens or let's say public spaces beneath the flyovers. So that could be a solution, let's say at a context of Mumbai, that we can definitely think about it. So where I stay in Dadar, so what they have done, so there is this bridge flyover, they have done the park for the children, or let's say green spaces where people can come and because we don't have any other green spaces, we cannot create that green spaces. So that thing is there if you look at the positive side. One example that we can mention or see at the national level is that we have this project called Samruddhi Mahamarga. So they have this highway that they have built on this particular road, right? So what they have done, that they have cut the mountains, and right now if as a creature I have to pass that from one geographical land to another, I don't have a corridor as such. So there we have the restrictions. So in foreign countries they have created this particular ecological corridors, I would say. So we should also think something like that, because at the end we have to live in a coexistence, right? We cannot live alone, right? So we were born all together. So
Exactly,
yes.
The core elements of sustainability where you do not sacrifice others' needs to fulfill yours. And
Right.
we talk about animals and
True.
everything. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of mistakes, are there any certain misconceptions that have been associated with this concept by people which have further reduced the success rate of these projects?
Right. So one misconception people have about this particular topic that we are talking, sustainable architecture, कि बहुत खर्चा होगा इसमें.
True,
एंड
absolutely.
शायद ना अच्छा नहीं दिखेगा, वो ग्लॉसी चमकाने वाला एलिमेंट होता है ना, वो नहीं रहेगा. सो आई टेल यू माई एक्सपीरियंस. एक्चुअली वो ऐसे है सर्टेन लेवल तक कि द वन प्रोजेक्ट दैट आई मेंशन आई वाज डूइंग इन वाई. सो वी वर वर्किंग ऑन द एलिवेशन पार्ट. अच्छा ये ऐसे करेंगे वगैरह, थोड़ा सा ट्रेडिशनल एलिमेंट्स ऐड करेंगे. So project अच्छा हुआ, client was good enough that he paid the money on time, everything was going good. एक point आया जब हमें contractor ढूंढना था to build the structure. कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्टर नहीं मिल रहा था. उसने बोला मैं आपको सीमेंट का घर अच्छे से करके दूंगा, आई वोंट बिल्ड विथ मॉड और लेट्स से ब्रिक्स, ये जो ट्रेडिशनल मेथड से हम लोग करते हैं. तो वी कुड नॉट कंप्लीट दैट प्रोजेक्ट एंड ही वाज चार्जिंग सो मच कि ऐसा अगर अलग कुछ तो करना है तो मतलब अगर तुमको सीमेंट का चाहिए तो मैं सस्ते में करके दूंगा, विच इज़ बेसिकली हार्मिंग द ये. बट अगर आपको ट्रेडिशनल मटेरियल्स में जाना है तो आपको एक्स्ट्रा कॉस्ट लगेगा. सो by default it is anyway costing you more, right? So that is one factor, and the other factor is that लोगों को आजकल थोड़ा सा उनके wants ज़्यादा बढ़ गए. people want more things and more glossy things, so maybe those are the misconceptions that the people have. But I think in Bangalore, let's say, there are many architects doing exceptionally well. They are taking the traditional materials and they are creating beautiful, structures with, maybe it could be composite structures, but they are creating beautiful structures with the help of traditional materials and the concept of principle of sustainability in general. So
think
yeah,
Bangalore
it
has
is
been-
possible. Yeah, it is possible.
I think Bangalore has been doing a lot in case
Yeah,
of
yeah.
sustainable architecture. Like Mumbai should really
Actually.
learn from Bangalore. Anyways, taking a bit government aspect on this, are there any rules and regulations that the Mumbai or the Maharashtra government has laid out in respect to some certain amount of natural light or certain amount of heat that should be entering a new building or a new complex construction? And is there anything laid out by the government like that?
We do have such rules, but it depends upon do we follow that.
Yeah.
So there are rules such as UDCPR, which is Unified Development Control and Provisions, this thing. So and then one rule we have is ECBC, that is Energy Conservation Building Code. We specifically talk about the energy efficiency and light and all these things, right? And then one more code which talks about in general thing is National Building Codes. So there are many codes, but some follow, some doesn't follow. So when I say some doesn't follow, that means that it's on paper but not on, in reality.
Right.
So that is there. So आपके ऊपर है आप कितना follow करते हो,
The
right?
effectivity is questioned.
Right. And no one comes after that कि अच्छा आपने ये follow किया, but actually है क्या site पे? Even there is no auditing happen, maybe let's say 10 years कि अच्छा जो किया था वो actually वहाँ पे है कि खाली paper पे था. So these are the terms that are happening.
Basically, the laws exist, but there's no one checking. कि सच में
Sometimes
हो
the
रहा
money
है।
power matters. So,
हाँ,
yeah.
corruption, yeah, corruption in
so-
general. Now, we know you're a professor. How do you drive your students towards practicing these sustainable practices in the work that they do themselves? And do they have any misconceptions like the common people, like us, we thought sustainable architecture is very expensive to do. But the more we looked into it, we were like, ये तो हो सकता है, इसमें ज़्यादा spending का ज़रूरत नहीं है. So how do you push your own students to adapt these practices into their own work?
So the intention of getting into teaching was that after working in few offices, what I get to know that people are very becoming insensitive towards certain things that. But I think it's a choice. I would say you can't say that you are wrong and and I am right. You can't say that. So one motto was that okay, whatever they do, just be true to your work and be honest. And kids were doing a project of skill development. So the conception what they had, अच्छा मैम अभी ये मटेरियल कौन यूज़ करता है, who live in such hut houses and all these things, हम अच्छा करते हैं. Their thing is that अभी तो ये होता नहीं है, right? तो बाद में भी हमको अभी जो currently चल रहा है we'll follow that. But the thing is somewhere you have to balance that things, what example you have right now and what example you set for the future generation as well. So if you have to continue your culture, the practices that you have following, so you have to maintain that thing. That is there, yeah.
Alright, so what are some things that we as individuals can do at our own houses or in our own
level.
societies
Right,
to make these practices more common, get rid of any misconceptions that might be present?
right. So everything starts from you, right? And then maybe it goes to another level, and right. So at home level, I would say that there are these three terms. So there is this term called WEF nexus. So W is water, E is energy, and F is food. So all the things in your household revolves around these three things only. So for water, what you can do for water, let's say आपको कपड़े वॉश करना है, आपको 10 कपड़े भी वॉश करना है, आपको 2 कपड़े भी वॉश करना है. So why you can't wait for like one day and then exactly put all the stuffs over there, क्योंकि पानी तो उतना ही घूमने वाला है, energy भी उतना consume. So these are some simple remedies that you can follow. For water, what you can do कि let's say if you hand wash some clothes, so उसमें पानी कम जाता है, right? Whether you use the washing machine, उसमें पानी ज़्यादा जाता है, right? So landscape level पे आप कुछ कर सकते हो कि आप अपने घर में जिसको कम पानी लगता है वैसे झाड़ों को वैसे कुछ urban farming कर सकते हो. If you have a more space like वैसे कुछ कर सकते हो. Energy level पे if you talked about LED lights, you can prefer traditional आपकी lighting के अलावा, right? That is there. And food level पे what you can see, basically reduce the food waste, that these things you can perform. So there are these simple remedies that you at your house you can follow that. So yes, these are there, and I think if you follow all these things together, you at an individual level know that somewhere you have contributed to the environment. Let's say if you take my example also now, I very honest to this, that sometimes I prefer pre-loved clothes. I know because fashion is every time is changing, and fashion industry is something like something like कि वो बहुत contribute करता है environment को harm करने में, right? So why not? क्योंकि hygiene एक अलग factor होता है जिसमें I can't use your brush, let's say, but I can use clothes which is used by someone for maybe let's say just fashion वो करने के लिए. तो वैसे at your lifestyle level that matters, right? What choices you have. So I think at your level you can try these methods, and I think this will be helpful, at least to contribute, at few percentage.
All right, ma'am. We've really enjoyed this conversation so far. Your ideas about fast fashion. One particular statement I absolutely love is that you pay for every step in Bombay.
Yes.
It's very,
True.
And we really understand that this is a very complex issue globally, and then we really admire your efforts that have been to the field, inspiring so many people across. And thank you so much for being a part of our podcast, How the World Works, from The Economist next door. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am.
Thank you so much again.